So for your next assignment, you're going to be drawing in shadow shapes. And I should have everybody looking at their computers so that you can see what's going on. Now, remember our basic concepts. We start general to specific, big to little, so on. So we want to look at big shadows first. Okay, big shadows first. And obviously we look at this large shadow here. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm not going to worry about the fact that this is dark, then light, then dark again. Okay. I'm going to look at this whole shadow area as like one big shadow. So I'm not going to worry about drawing a line here and here and here at first. I'm going to draw a big section first, and I'm going to go from here straight down through there. This is going to say, okay, now I know where the top of all these shadows lie. Right there. And then we mark that on our board or on our paper the same way we do everything else. Okay? So there's that. This went right to the corner. There's that. So if I connect those two, and I'm going pretty fast, you're going to want to make sure you're doing this accurately. So there's the top of that shadow. All right? Right there, right there. Simple as that. From there, we can start breaking down the shadow a little further. For example, this section here is up there. Well, it actually kind of goes across here. Okay? So we can, again, draw a construction line and then bring that across. I'm going to kind of do some shortcuts here so that I don't take up too much time. I want to make sure I can get to everything. All right? Then I'm going to erase what I don't need at the top there. Get this vinyl eraser. Okay. From there, I can start to break down this larger shape a little better to make sure that all those shadows fit in there. One thing I want to stress to you is this. This is really important. So if you're not listening, start listening. With your shadow shapes, you want to draw extremely light. Extremely light. Because what's going to happen is if you look at, say, this here, this part of our shadow, it's not an edge. Okay, we have what's called transitions and edges. This here on the arm, that's an edge. We know where it stops exactly. Boom, it goes, it stops. Here, this part is we call it a transition of value. And what that means is there's no real defined edge. Now, if you're drawing really dark, what's going to happen is you're going to create defined edges without even trying. And that's going to really affect when you start to bring in value in there, okay? So we have that large one broken up. Now we're going to, like I said, we're going to start breaking it down a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is this, we did the top, we did this part coming over. I think I'm going to break this top shadow here down into two sections. Okay. I'm going to take the bottom part of that. I'm going to draw a construction line. Oh, it's so hard to do this around the camera. And then I'm going to do a construction line going across there. But first I'm going to find this construction line. That's there. And the bottom goes to here. So now I'm going to draw that line. Then I'm going to draw a line across here. Now when I connect that, I'm a little too, there we go. That's where it ends up, okay? I'm going to go back in and erase what I don't need. All right. So this here is going to be the bottom of that shadow. Then I can find the top of this shadow. Okay. Again, construction line. Finding the top of that shadow. If you use your construction lines, you're going to get them correct. Now, I'm going to go a little faster so that I can develop this drawing. So we have a construction line. This is where learning this process is important, because once you get more practice, you can start to do this stuff in other ways, and it's much quicker. And this is where it goes over. Okay. I don't like how this looks. It's too... There we go. Okay. Then I want to draw this bottom section. Again, finding a construction line there. Same thing here. If you find construction lines, it's much easier to find these spots. Like I said, I'm going to go a little faster. If you're using construction lines for all these parts, you should be fine. You know, this is a pretty big shadow shape here. And if you look at this upper arm, this has a line going up and up to there and down and around. But for now, we're just going to go straight across. And again, if you use a construction line, much easier to find. Oh. See, even when I try to connect these construction lines, sometimes I have a difficult time. So we've just got to be patient. Okay, there we go. Again, erasing what I don't need. I know I don't need it past that point. Okay, there's where that is. Now we're gonna, just for time's sake, okay, I'm gonna imagine if I was continuing this and I was breaking this shadow shape down further. What I'm going to show you here is the process in which I want you to take, okay? So everyone pay attention. So now I have this basic shape, right? I have to now start to determine the rest of that shadow shape. Remember, she was talking about finding the shape. I'm going to look, this is kind of like actually this kind of reminds me of a short piece of pizza, if I think about it that way. And this curves up. Then this curves over here. This is actually down a little bit. So what I'm doing here is I'm still using general basic lines, and I'm trying to find that shape. Now, if you look, this part of the shadow on the inside part here is much darker than it is up here. That at this point is not going to matter. We want to consider all the different values, just the same shadow, okay? So this dark and this light part of the shadow, we still keep them together. Now, this is the next step that's super huge and important. So everybody pause what you're doing and look. If you're not paying attention, please pay attention. All right? Because the next thing I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start to fill in this shadow shape. Now, that's my generalized shape, okay? This is where what we're doing is a little different than her. Once we get that shape, I'm going to take my pencil And I'm going to fill that in with a very, very, very light value, okay? And I'm just going to take my time. And it's almost like kind of like, you know, like when you're coloring in a coloring book with a crayon, you kind of like start lightly and then you eventually go heavier on it, but you're just trying to get it nice and smooth in there. That's what I'm going to do. And I want this shadow shape to be so light it's unbelievable. Okay? Like you can almost barely see it. It's there, but not by a lot. One thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see where overlapping pencil lines happen. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a quick sec. Okay? If you look, I don't know if you can, how well you can see it on your camera, but that's really light. And that's how you want to keep it. Okay? This is what I don't want to see. Let me just get a piece of quick paper. What I don't want to see is, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see you taking a regular pencil and going like this. If you say this is your shadow shape, okay, let's just say that's it. I don't want to see you going like this. Real dark, okay? I don't want to see a dark shadow. I don't want to see you doing this, doing some rendering in a value and then starting down here. If you look, this is that overlap I was talking about. I'll bring it closer to the camera. That's the overlap. I don't want to see that. What I do want to see, very lightly, hold your pencil on an angle, okay? If you remember from the very beginning of this class, when we watched those videos on tripod grip and overhand grip, I'm using an overhand grip. And I'm very, very lightly, it's on an angle, but the tip of the pencil is still hitting the paper and I'm still just barely hitting it, okay? That's what I want to see. What is going to happen after that is you're going to have these light values, because if you look here, this is dark going to light. What will eventually happen is we will start to make them darker in other places, and that'll be what we kind of learn next. I was painting earlier. I have paint all over my hand. Now I got it all over my paper. So when you find a shadow shape, I want you to very lightly, very lightly, kind of color that in, so to speak, or render that in. But I don't want it to be dark at all. Okay?